Good morning, PT on Ice crowd. Happy to be here. Happy Monday. Happy Christmas Eve. It's Monday. It's 8:30. My name is Mike Eisenhart. I am the lead for the population health prevention and health promotion side of the ICE faculty, along with my team and the growing curriculum, Allie Hartman, Jeremy Fletcher, Megan Doyle, and others. We bring to you the APHPT curriculum. It is 8:30 plus, 8:32 or 8:33. And it's Monday, which means that it's time to talk a little population health and how we can kind of integrate that in the practices that we all have, whether we have traditional practice or non-traditional practice. So that's kind of the header, and I figure I'll just get right into it. So I got my 15 minutes, and we'll get rolling right now. Okay. So this morning I thought I would talk a little bit about the gift that keeps on giving, and of course, it's appropriate this time of year. For those who celebrate, it's Christmas Eve, and a big, celebration and lots of gift giving and all that good stuff. And even for those who don't celebrate the holiday, you may get into the spirit of it and give people gifts, and there's all sorts of holidays this time of year, and so it becomes a common theme, this idea of gift giving. And there was this old commercial way back when, and I don't even remember, I can't remember if it was the Isotoner commercial or not, but it was the gift that keeps on giving, or, I don't know. Anyway, bottom line is that phrase stuck in my head. And I was thinking about it this morning, and I was thinking about, what's a time-appropriate topic this morning to talk about. And of course, I always try to take things that are a little bit relevant, nuggets that I've sort of seen and observed throughout the week and bring them to you on Monday. And with any luck, anybody who watches or listens begins to think about this stuff. And of course, the big picture for me is always this idea of, this journey that we're all on, both as clinicians and professionals, this journey of how do we bring ourselves to a higher level of practice? How do we open up our mind and our approach so that we're really trying to achieve health, which is very different than just simply delivering health care. So that's the journey all along, and that's the kind of thing that I've been sort of talking about for a while. And so what I thought I would talk about, and what was timely this time of year, is the idea of joy. And it's a funny concept. It's a funny topic. It's not one that I would say I'm an expert in by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something that I think is important. And I think it's one of those things where probably we don't think about it very much. If you're in clinical care, it's probably often that you see sort of the relief of distress. That's a very common thing. People come to us with problems. We try to fix those problems. We try to make them a little bit better. We try to get a person out of distress. That's a super common thing. We often react in situations of distress. When you see somebody who's really in pain or is really suffering, you want to do something. You want to respond, react. You feel like you have this need to jump into the situation. Again, very common, and as caregivers and people who serve others, we definitely get that. But most of us don't take the time to do the health-facing side of this equation. Most of us are so busy in our lives that we don't take the time to really stop in and look for moments of joy and then think of it as, how do I facilitate that? As a provider, as a professional, how can I facilitate that moment of joy? We see it occasionally. I can think back of, sort of the classic, prototypical, if you're a therapist, especially if you're a physical therapist, the person who's struggling and they're in the parallel bars and they're taking their first few steps and the face on the family next to them, right? Like that's a joyous moment, that person who's recovering from something very severe. But I think we've spent so much time talking about, kind of milestones, goals, function, that we often forget about the fact that that's really what's in our grasp. That's what we really have the opportunity to give others every day. We have that chance, and that is an unbelievably awesome thing. And so what I thought I would do is just kind of give you some examples of moments that really you can get after this, and moments where when you deliver it, it gives so much more back to you. Right? And I think joy is one of those things. Joy is one of those things where, when you can, see it in a person, when a person gets a little bit of it, it's like explosive. It is infectious. Everyone around them, think of the person who started genuinely laughing at a situation. I don't know if you've ever kind of had this or had it recently, where someone they find something funny and it's just they're really, really engaged, and they start laughing kind of uncontrollably. And what that does to you, that joyous moment, and how it sort of infects you, and you start to find them funny. You may not even find the situation funny, but looking at them laughing, you're laughing, and before you know it, it becomes this positive, contagious effect. That concept is so important. That concept of social contagion is so important in everything that we do, and we don't really think about it that often. I mean, we might talk about it, like how can I make this Instagram post go viral, or how can I get this thing to, get more likes on social media? Like, yeah, that's kind of it. It sort of touches it a little bit. But what we really want is this contagion of positive, emotions, positivity, whatever you want to call it. So, I've talked a lot about the kind of, the continuum between, despair and hope. Last week and in previous weeks, I've kind of touched on this idea of hope being kind of the counterbalance of despair, and that, our jobs in many ways are to bring hope to people. But now I want to go one step further and talk about the fact that joy may be the counterbalance of pain. And we always talk about pain, and we talk about people alleviating pain. That's kind of going from negative to neutral. And I guess what I want to do is get us thinking about how do we go from neutral to positive? How do we take it from not only the negative to neutral, like I get back to the minimum standard in life, but how do I actually take it then to the positive? And I think that's what joy can do. And so there is something there for us to kind of talk about and for us to sort of look for. And it's a great time of year to do it. And so on the one hand, I want to kind of lay out a challenge, and I'm always a little bit tentative with me sort of calling it a challenge, because that concept kind of gets away from us. But what I really want to do is I just want to challenge you. If you're listening or you're watching or you catch this at some point, I want to challenge you to go out and find something that you can do. And today is a great time of year to do it. It makes it easy. It's lower barrier, because it's kind of like socially acceptable to do something for someone this time of year. So like it's a great time. And if you want to wait, but it's a good time because the barrier is low. But do something to bring joy, right? Do something to light someone up and watch what that does to them, right? So this weekend, I had some of that. It's a funny transition, for me, and I can tell you that I hope more people get into this transition. As many of you know, I've sort of taken a different role in our company in the last year. I've kind of handed off the management of the company itself to my brother Eric, who really is now the tip of the arrow, who's really leading us. And that's a different thing for me, because I'm not in that, in that formal leadership role. But I can't tell you how much excitement and joy it brings to now be almost past that and watch your team members behind you bring joy to other people. So if you saw on social media this weekend, if you saw Proactivity's posts, or if you saw some of my posts, we did this race, and Eric really led this. I mean, this is kind of, it was his baby. And the idea was to raise funds for like this local historical landmark in town, right? So if you know New Jersey, or you've ever seen any images in New Jersey, you've probably seen the Red Mill. Anybody who comes out and visits, us at base camp, I always say, drive through Clinton. It's like one block, and you'll see the Red Mill, and then you've seen it, and that's a thing. But locally, the Red Mill is a big deal. It's got a lot of history, and it's in many ways kind of a historical icon in the state of New Jersey. Well, we got, sort of to know the folks who run the museum and kind of the nonprofit over there, and they're, short on funds. They're looking to raise funds to keep this landmark going. And the town, kind of gets around this landmark. I mean, everybody knows it's an icon. It's kind of a big deal if you're like a local here. And so Eric has this idea. He hatches this idea of like, hey, how can we bring the season together with some health and together with these folks in their need, and get the town involved and pull in the mayor and all this other stuff. And so before you know it, we've launched this crazy idea of a no-fee race. Just join in, just come out and run. It's 5 miles, and everybody's going to dress up, and that's your cost of admission. If you want to be involved, you got to dress up in some kind of like holiday garb or gear and go out and run your 5 miles and make a donation to the Red Mill. And he sort of, sweetened the pot a little bit with, I'm going to do a polar plunge if we raise enough money. And many of you saw Aaron Perez, his rap. I mean, it's got 20,000 views on the various mediums and stuff. But the whole idea of that, right, it came together nicely. But the coolest thing for me was I sort of ran the water stop at mile 1. Like that was like a low profile job. But I got to stand there and watch the joy on people's faces. I mean, people who ran by thanking us, like, hey, this is awesome, thank you so much. And, fathers and sons and mothers and daughters and neighbors and people who wouldn't connect otherwise are out there talking and carrying on and smiling and genuinely experiencing joy. Like, that is the gift that keeps on giving. That was a social contagion of something incredibly positive. At a time in the world where there's so much negative and there's so much contagion of negative, as healthcare providers, we probably don't think of that as our job, but it is our job. It may not be our day-to-day, like what we do, the gears we pull or the levers we pull, but it is the job. It is our calling. It is what we are really called to do, is to give people that. And that's kind of, I think, a challenge for all of us. How can you do that today? There's so many examples of it. I've seen people doing pay it forward stuff. This time of year, you always see the videos pop up, and some guy bought the next person's groceries or paid the toll in front of them or at the drive-through window. Like, those are all awesome things because it just instills a little moment. But as healthcare providers, can we do that? Can we find ways to use our skills and tools to give someone that moment where they just, like explode on the inside with positivity, and then ask them to continue to push it on, because that really is, I think, something that just carries on and fights a lot of the negativity in the world. Now, of course, we know, and you can do the dive if you want. There is a connection between people who experience positive emotions like joy and health. So that part, like, that connection is made. We don't have to worry so much about the idea of, is this valuable? It's incredibly valuable. It's probably the most valuable thing that we can do. But the question for us and the reflection for us is, are we actually setting out to do that? Is that what we're after? Are we after just delivering a great service? Are we after making people happy? Happiness is different than joy. Right? Joyousness, that's a different emotion. If you know it when you see it, right? We can be happy on a lot of things, but joy is something that comes from deep within us. So I'll give you one more example, right? And I tweeted about this, and you'd be surprised how much of a reach the geocaching people have. Now, if you don't know anything about geocaching, I got 3 minutes left. If you don't know anything about geocaching, it's this scavenger hunt game. It's kind of like a GPS-based free thing, pretty much. You can do like a Premiere thing. But anyway, people hide stuff all over the world in various places. And it's just kind of like an exploration thing. It kind of gnaws at all of our desire to be out there exploring and all that good stuff. So geocaching is something I've done with my kids quite a bit. I wasn't doing it yesterday. I literally just kind of like said to my son, you got to come with me. I'm going for a hike. I'm taking the dogs for a hike. It was a beautiful day yesterday. I knew it was going to rain today. So it's like, let's get out there and do something. He's 11. I've mentioned that before. So, he's bouncing off the walls anyway. We got to get some energy off this kid. He's just like one of the dogs. If you don't get the energy off him, he becomes destructive. So it's like, all right, we've got to find a way to, get him out there. So we're going to go for a hike. And I go to my favorite place. It's basically straight uphill, top of a ridge, straight downhill. It doesn't take terribly long. You can extend it long if you want to. Anyway, the thing about Andrew is he loves to like climb, and he loves to boulder and do all the things that, like, I guess, traditional little boy would like to do. So we're out and we're climbing, and I've got the dogs, and he's going over these rocks, and we're at the final piece where he can climb some rocks. And I said to him, hey man, like we're about to go back downhill, like this is your last chance if you want to climb some rocks. And so unbeknownst to either one of us, he's climbing the rocks, and he goes, Dad, you're never going to believe it. I think I found a geocache. And he pulls it out, and he reads the letter, and it says this thing was placed in like 2011 in December, and reads the book, and no one has found this thing before. This kid goes from grumpy, kind of like, oh, I have to go for a hike with Dad, like emotion, to this like lit up joy. His quote to me was, I'm super stoked, right? 11-year-old, I'm super stoked. Like how cool. But the bottom line was to watch him read the letter and flip through the notebook and realize that no one had found this before, and explore through it. That was like a child, just like you would expect from an 11-year-old. Like, he stopped having to be the cool 11-year-old, and he could just be an excited kid. Like, that's joy. And that's what I hope that every one of us, can find today. Can find a way to give that to someone, this week maybe, or every day. Maybe you do it every day. Anyway, with 1 minute left, I guess I just want to say this. I hope, so back to signs of hope. I hope that we're at a point now where we can do that, right? Like, as a profession, I hope that, for the last 2 years, it's been, pretty much 2 years of banging this drum of, hey, look and turn the other way. Like we don't always have to look at pain and disease and despair and just pull people from that to neutral. We can take them from neutral to positive. Like we can take them the rest of the journey, take them where we're all really trying to go. And if you believe that, and you can start finding examples of that in your practice every day, then you're opening up an entire new avenue, an entire new market, really an ocean of possibilities. And if you're doing that, congratulations, complete kudos to you. And if you're not doing that, but you should, you can start that today. And it's super easy. Just find something that can light someone up. It could be as simple as, I love that shirt. That sweater looks great on you. Like, I love the fact that you came in here with a smile. Thank you for doing that. Or, wow, that was a really great cup of coffee. Like those kinds of simple things. And as we start to find them and we start to recognize them, it becomes contagious. You get back tenfold what you've given, if not more, 100-fold, maybe 1,000-fold. But the bottom line is that when we start to spread that, positivity rules, health rules, and we change things. All right, 9 seconds left. I better wrap it up. Guys, it's only Monday. It's Christmas Eve Monday. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to you. If you don't celebrate Christmas, you can absolutely celebrate Christmas by just simply giving somebody some joy. And I hope everyone will do that because it's a great time of year to do it. It's low barrier. It's easy. It's easy this time of year. But we should be doing it as often as we can. It's only Monday. You can do it this Monday. You can do it next Monday. Whenever you do it, make it count.